Today we're talking about not feeling good enough, something Eddie Guerrero battled. Let's get into it.
One, two, my God, it's the Kickout Show!
Hello, welcome to WWA Wrestling with Adversity, and today we're talking about Eddie Guerrero, one of my all-time favourite wrestlers. Something that is shared by the universe, obviously. His name is still chanted to this day. How many stadiums do we hear it? How many times are we going to see that from Rey Mysterio or Sasha Banks or somebody mocking him to get some heat from the crowd? But what a wrestler. The matches he had, the incredible rise to the top, the storylines he had, Rey Mysterio, Chris Benoit. I mean, watching them in the ring is magical. It was like, is top tier wrestling. Unfortunately, especially in WWE, I don't think we see that kind of wrestling anymore. The charisma from the guy, the ability on the mic, the look, the using the lie, cheat and steal, the Mami storyline with China, the car, the lowrider, everything about him just oozed professional wrestler at the peak. How entertaining was it to tune in and watch Eddie Guerrero? You don't necessarily get that so much, especially in WWE these days. It's like, who draws you in? Who brings you back the next week? It's so rare these days to have a wrestler like that, and we're saying goodbye to one now as we watch the final few matches of John Cena. We miss him. We're going to miss him once he's gone. That's for sure. Eddie Guerrero then grew up into wrestling royalty, the Guerrero family. Absolute wrestling royalty. What a heritage to be born into. But it didn't necessarily do Eddie many favours. He talks in his book about feeling shame and guilt and not necessarily being good enough. Something that I know I've battled with and still do, you know, the thoughts and the feelings of not being good enough. Like, I'll never be able to do that. That's not something I could do. Or seeing someone close to you, family or friends, or what we see on social media today is people being at the peak of something or portraying that they're at the peak of it. Like, they have no problems. Like, everything's just fine for them. And we look on social media and we scroll through and we think, why have they got such a great body? I can't do that. Why are they so successful? They put in so much effort. I'll never be good enough for that. So that results in us then going away trying to push those feelings down, to hide those feelings. We'll either do it through gambling, sex, drugs, alcohol, TV, food, all these things to kind of numb the pain and push that shame and that guilt away. And Eddie went through that too, and I'm sure many other wrestlers have been through that, because we're all human. These are the things that as we grow up and we realise it's time to have a look inside ourselves, why do we act the way we do? Why do we respond to things in a way that can be self-destructive or like self-sabotage? And it's these underlying feelings of guilt, shame, embarrassment of maybe who we are or where we come from. And I know I've definitely been through that. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. So I battled addiction for years, constantly thinking that I could stop whenever I wanted. So I'll stop next week, I'll stop next Monday, and I could for a short period. Now, you might think of alcoholic as somebody who is on a park bench, hasn't had a shower in a few years, carries around loads of clothes and sits drinking whiskey all day. That was not me. You might have heard of the term functioning alcoholic. Well, I was more of a surviving alcoholic. I did what I had to survive, and then whatever spare time I had then was spent drinking beer. Just necking beers, just because I felt like there was nothing else I could do. I felt like there was no point to doing anything. I had my son, don't get me wrong. I put all my effort into making sure he was okay and steering him away from that. But then it was like the spare time that I had was like, well, this is my time. I want to drink. It's what I want to do. Leave me alone. This is where I get to sit playing the computer or chatting to my mate on the headset. And then I'd get stuck in that pattern. And it would be every few days. If I drink on a Monday, what's the point in not drinking on a Wednesday, I felt like? What am I going to do on a Wednesday? I haven't got anywhere to be. I've got no purpose. There's no point being anywhere. I couldn't stick at a job because I just want to drink. I just wanted to black out the world and black out who I thought I was. And that's what addiction can be. Addiction isn't necessarily something that you do because you're a bad person. It's not something you're doing to destroy your life deliberately. It comes from trauma. It's like a dummy or a pacifier or a comforter. It's just this thing that you need. And it's not until you find connection, start looking inside, start addressing these things, just like Eddie Guerrero did. Getting people on your team that can see where you've been and they can help you look into where you're going. Too many people are getting lost in addiction, and then they might go to rehab. And that's okay for a month, maybe 3 months. But what happens when you get out? That world is still there. Those things are still inside you. And if you don't address them, the addiction doesn't really go away. It shows its head in so many different ways. It creeps into your life bit by bit. It will give you thoughts of, wow, what's the point? No one cares anyway. And it will just drag you back down. And that certainly happened to me with alcohol. It happened with food. It happened with going out and wanting to go to nightclubs and just get absolutely shit-faced. To just blank it all out. And I thought I was having fun. But I wasn't. I was in no way having fun. The waking up, the hangovers, the pain of people I've hurt. Over and over and over. And just when you think you got to the bottom, it happens again. And then it happens again. And then you really think this is the time. And you apologize to everybody. And you say, this is the one. And then it happens again and again. That's crushing. And you can't understand why it's happening to you. You can't understand why you're being pulled down like this. When you know that's not what you should be doing. You know there's people there that love you. You know there's people that you love. You know there's things that you want to do. And it just keeps chipping away at you. Until you either get to rock bottom. Or you turn your life around. And that's what I did. I woke up one day. I made a phone call. I reached out for help. Within a week, I was talking to someone. Within 2 weeks, I was in a community. Within 3 weeks, I'd stopped. And that was nearly 3 years ago. The power of community, the power of reaching out and getting help from people that understand you. And Eddie Guerrero knew that. In 2001, he got sober. He reached out, he got the help he needed, and he started to understand where these things were coming from. It's not the addiction to the substance, it's what is it covering up inside us? What is it being used for to protect us? The paradox of it, that it's protecting you and also destroying your life at the same time. And that's why people on the outside look at it as if it's insane. And it feels like a form of insanity. When you know you're doing something that's destroying you and at the same time you need it. And you can't be without it. And add to that whatever you want. It doesn't have to be alcohol. It can be food. It can be toxic relationships. These things that we don't necessarily look at as addictions or life destroying because we still get up for work. We still show up for our kids. But food is a terribly addictive substance that is used and marketed to really get us, to really ignite those chemicals in our brain The fridge is always there, the cupboards are always there, the supermarkets are full of all the stuff that we want that will make us feel better. Packets of biscuits and cakes and whatever it is your favourite thing may be, fizzy pops and all those kind of things. That's an addiction. And we're suffering from an obesity epidemic. And they'll tell you that on the news. They'll tell you it's an obesity epidemic, but it isn't. It's unaddressed trauma. It's mental health issues. And that doesn't mean everybody's mental. That doesn't mean everybody's crazy. What it means is no one's taking into consideration the world that we're living in right now, with social media, with the way we're becoming more and more disconnected. At any moment in the day, you can speak to someone online or write a comment on something. But where's the real connection? When are you really getting to talk about you and your life and who you are and the things that you think and feel? That opportunity just does not come up. And now kids are socialising on the street less. Or if they are, it's dangerous. They're talking on headsets. Everybody takes the piss. Everybody's constantly writing shitty comments. You can't post fuck all these days without someone writing a shitty comment, even when it's positive. You say something completely positive, someone's got something to say about it, something negative, something to try and bring you down. So all these addictions, all this food, alcohol, drugs, whatever it is, they're really a mask, are really covering what it is that's going on, and it's mental health, our brain health. And it's suffering right now. And we see that in the obesity epidemic. We see it everywhere. The kids are fighting. Nobody's going out anymore. The news is constantly full of war. Constantly full of this side versus this side. Whether it's colour, religion, sexuality. The confusion that's out there. Everybody's fighting for freedom. Everybody's fighting for their rights. Yet they don't mind trampling on everyone else's while they're doing it. And that's confusing for people. People feel lost. They feel isolated. And it all comes down to who you think you are. The trauma that's happened to you. And it manifests in these ways. It manifests in lashing out. In the terrible comments online. Trying to pull people down. So I always felt guilt and shame and embarrassment from the upbringing that I had. I was broke growing up, couldn't afford the latest trainers, the latest games, toys, whatever that may be. And I was bullied for that. In primary school I was bullied. In my local area I was racially intimidated. There was a massive contingent of foreigners where I lived. And I was like the only white kid around. There was more when I was younger. And as I grew up, they moved away, but we didn't. And I was picked on and I was pointed at, and I've had my face spat on by adults when I was a kid. Stones thrown at me, my door kicked, toys stolen out of my house, trapped in entries, all sorts of stuff. So I was constantly living in a state of survival. So at primary school, that wasn't safe. Out in the street, that wasn't safe. At home, with the upbringing that I had with my mum, that didn't feel safe. So as I'm growing up, as I'm getting into my teenage years, then I started to stand up for myself more. I started to get an aura of being dangerous. And I played up to that, and I made sure it was there at all times, that people thought I was unhinged or crazy. As a form of protection. Inside, I was terrified. On the outside, I was giving it loads. And then along came alcohol and drugs. And that was the spinach that Popeye needed to keep him going. So it all came from that shame and that embarrassment. and not feeling good enough. All my friends were better off than me. They had better lives than me, it seemed on the surface. And I just didn't feel good enough. I didn't fit in. But I tried my hardest to fit in. I tried to hide who I was. I tried to hide my background and the fact that I had no money and that my mum had been sectioned and that my house was basically empty. I had to hide that I only had 2 items of clothing. I would cut them and put paint on them and pretend I'd been working with my cousin or something like that, just so I could go outside and hang out with my mates and didn't feel poor. I would go ages without food. I would take food from my friend's house, stealing eggs, putting them in my pocket, seeing £10 on the side and taking it just so that I could eat for a few days. And that shame, that guilt, that embarrassment, it stays with you. Those feelings need to be felt, they need to be expressed. And that's what I didn't do. I covered it all up with alcohol and going out and acting like a dickhead. So I began to rebuild myself from the bottom up. And it was tough. When you've got a crutch, when you've got something that you feel is supporting you, as much as it's destroying you and having to give that up, it's tough. You have to look towards building something that's worthy to you. You have to look what matters to you, what your values are, and lean into that. Find support and start showing yourself that you love yourself, that you're worthy, that you are not your past, you are not your trauma. Showing up for yourself. So important to show up for yourself. We think that we get our worth from doing for other people, but it's not. It's from doing it for you when nobody's looking, when no one's around. Showing up for you when it's really difficult. It can be as simple as getting out of bed when you said you would. It can be as simple as having a shower, brushing your teeth, eating a healthy meal, drinking a glass of water, getting a walk outside. These things are talked about all the time, but it's because they're true. You build a history of success. These small things, they stack up until you rebuild your confidence. You rebuild who you are. Not who you were, not what you've done, not where you've been, but who you are today. I'm the sort of person that turns up for myself, that cleans my kitchen, that washes my clothes, that makes a phone call to somebody and reaches out. Vulnerability is not weakness. It's only portrayed that way, and look where that's getting us. Look where that's getting everybody pretending that they're tough, that they don't need anybody, that I'll do it myself. Where's that get anybody? We're not meant to live like that. So what you can do for yourself is start rebuilding your confidence in who you are, that trust in yourself. And it can be very, very small. There's a whole wide range of things you can do. Read a few pages of a book. Watch a documentary. Go out and help somebody in the shopping centre. All these things, they build up an identity of who you are, because at the moment that's what you're doing. You live in an identity of who you think you are or who you think you should be based on where you've been. You're not locked into that. You're not chained to that. You don't have to be ashamed of who you are. You don't have to be embarrassed about what you did. What matters is who you are today, who you want to be. Start stepping into those shoes. Start embodying that personality. And you'll see, you'll start to make inroads. Things will start to change. Your mind will start to see different things out there in the world. And stick with me, and I'll help you. If you come and join the school group, this is what I'm dedicated to doing. Helping people climb off the mat and go again. So thank you for listening today. It's been a pleasure as always. I love talking about these things. I love reaching out. I love trying to help as many people as possible. And remember, it's not about hitting the mat. It's all about the kick out. I'll see you next week.